All right. Good morning. I'm Stephanie Benvenuto, Chair of the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners. It is 9:01 on July 8th, 2022, and I'm calling to order the special meeting of the board. The process we're using for today's meeting is authorized by Government Code Section 54953E, which was added by Assembly Bill 361. This allows the Housing Commission to use teleconferencing and provide the public with an opportunity to address the board through a call-in or internet-based option during a proclaimed state of emergency. The San Diego City Council on June 21st, 2022 declared that a state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of members to meet safely in person. The council also declared that this applies to all boards, commissions, and committees in the city of San Diego. This meeting is occurring by video conference with all board members, our interim president and CEO, housing commission staff, and general counsel participating by video. For the record, I'll ask each board member to indicate their presence as I say their name. Vice Chair Klontner.
Here.
Commissioner Johanna Hester. I see you. Does that count, Chuck? Can we take her like signal?
That's good. That's good enough for me. Yes.
That's zoomable. All right. All right. So
I found my
guy says it's good. All right, Johanna, we'll let you signal vote. Commissioner Keeley Hubbard is not joining us today. Commissioner Mitch Mitchell.
Here.
Commissioner Melinda Vasquez.
Here.
Good morning, everybody. No members of the public are in attendance. However, members of the public may watch the video conference and hear the audio of today's meeting, which is being streamed live online. The agenda for today's meeting included a link to the website for the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners where the public can access the live streaming for today's meeting. The public has been provided with an alternative opportunity to provide comments to the board member through an online comment form and a toll-free phone number. A link to that comment form was included on the agenda for today's meeting, which is posted on our website, www.sdhc.org, on July 1st. The agenda and the public comment form explain that comments about items on the agenda will be read into the record if they're submitted by 4 p.m. yesterday, July 7th. Non-agenda public comments submitted by 8 o'clock this morning will be read into the record. In addition, members of the public who wish to speak on an item may call the toll-free phone number that's included on our agenda. Members of the public should monitor the meeting through the live video streaming available through the Housing Commission's website, www.sdhc.org. Again, today's agenda included a link to the website for this board where the public can access the live streaming for the meeting. Members of the public should call the toll-free phone number only when the item they wish to comment on is introduced. If a caller begins to comment on an item that's different from the item currently being considered, we'll ask them to hang up and call back into the meeting at the appropriate time. Members of the public will have 3 minutes each to provide their comments. However, if a large number of callers wish to speak on a single item, comments will be limited to 1 minute each. This morning, the board will begin by meeting in closed session. After closed session, we will proceed in open session with the items on today's agenda. Agenda item 100 regarding the board's election of the chair and vice chair will occur out of order at the end of today's meeting. So now we'll go ahead and convene closed session.
Madam Chair, you need to take public comment and have legal counsel state the agenda in public session.
Correct. I will do that instead. We'll take public comment first. Apologies, everybody. We'll take public comment on the closed session item. And Chuck, if you wanted to announce what that is.
Yes, certainly. The San Diego Housing Commission will meet in closed session to discuss its closed session agenda, which is item Roman numeral 4A, conference with real property negotiators. And it concerns the property located at 3737 through 3747 Midway Drive as referenced in the agenda. That's the only matter that will be discussed in closed session.
Thank you. Scott, will you let us know when the time period is done?
Yes, we have about 45 seconds left.
Thank you.
That concludes the time, and there are no callers.
Thank you. So now we'll go ahead and move into closed session. And if you're not supposed to be in that, we'll move you out as well, but you're encouraged to just take yourself out of the meeting. Thank you. Chuck, would you mind reporting out?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The San Diego Housing Commission met in closed session to discuss item Roman numeral 4A concerning price and terms of payment. There was discussion, but no formal action was taken. That concludes the matters that were discussed in closed session.
Thank you. We'll now proceed. Chuck, would you mind reporting out?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
This is impressive. One sec. Let me, if you're not on mute, maybe mute yourself real fast.
Numeral 4A concerning.
Did you all hear that too? Or was, okay, because it occurred to me maybe it was just my computer. All right. That was great.
There was a duel.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
We traveled back in time briefly. So, okay. So now we're going to return to our open session agenda and we'll proceed with non-agenda public comments. The phone line is now open to provide non-agenda public comments. You can call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue to provide non-agenda public comments. This is the time when members of the public may provide comments to the Housing Commission Board about topics that are not on today's agenda but involve a subject within the Housing Commission's area of responsibility. The Housing Commission cannot take action on non-agenda public comments, but again, that number is 833-610-2513. We did not receive any written non-agenda public comments for today's meeting. I'll now ask our Vice President of Communications, Scott Marshall, if we have any callers for non-agenda public comments.
We do not have any callers at this time. We have about 1 minute left on the clock.
Thank you.
That concludes the time and there are no callers.
Thank you. Now we'll turn to commissioner comments. Commissioners, any comments? Commissioner Vasquez?
This is actually just a question, so I'm not sure if it can be addressed. I was thinking maybe I should have done it during closed session, but as to the previous project that was supposed to be I'm gonna forget the project that we discussed last month was supposed to be in front of the Housing Commission on the 28th of June, and it was since canceled. I didn't know what the status was of the reason why it was not presented in front of the Housing Commission. Cavalier Cove or Mariners Cove, I believe it is.
Yeah, it was the Mariners Cove project that's scheduled to go before the Housing Authority next.
Right, on the 28th of June is when it was scheduled, but then it was since canceled. So I didn't know what why that was.
We're waiting for a final determination from the state as to whether the Surplus Land Act applies to this property.
Okay.
We do not believe it does. And if the state agrees, then we will be redocketing it for the Housing Authority.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
You bet.
Okay, anything else from the commissioners? Seeing nothing, we'll proceed to the next agenda on our item, which is the report from the Interim President and CEO. Jeff.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I have a few announcements to share this morning, primarily about awards that the Housing Commission and our collaborations have received since the board's last meeting. First, the prestigious local Ruby Awards from the San Diego Housing Federation were presented on June 16th. Our Executive Vice President of Rental Assistance and Workforce Development, Azucena Valladolid, received the John Craven Public Service Memorial Award. She was recognized for her leadership of initiatives to enhance the process of leasing permanent housing units with supportive services for people experiencing homelessness. This is a well-deserved honor for Azucena, who is truly an exceptional leader of our rental assistance division. In addition, our former CEO, Rick Gentry, received a special recognition award for his 50 years working in the affordable housing sector. The Housing Commission was also among public housing authorities in the San Diego region that received an award for innovations in response to COVID-19. This award recognized actions taken to quickly utilize emergency housing vouchers. The Housing Commission received 480 of these vouchers, and as of June 30th, 94% of these vouchers had been awarded to families who had leased a rental home or were in the process of searching for a home with their voucher. Also, 2 developments on which the Housing Commission collaborated received Ruby Awards. St. Teresa of Calcutta Villa in East Village was recognized as the project of the year for new construction with more than 100 units. This development consists of 403 affordable rental housing units. Of those, 270 are for people who experienced homelessness. The Housing Commission awarded 270 rental housing vouchers to help those residents pay their rent. The Housing Commission also awarded a loan and authorized multifamily housing revenue bonds to support this development. Father Joe's Villages and Chelsea Investment Corporation developed this property. The award for Project of the Year for new construction with less than 100 units went to Keeler Court Apartments, which I'll discuss more in the next item in my report. But first, I want to congratulate Azucena and all of the Housing Commission staff who worked on these developments and initiatives. And I also want to thank and congratulate this board for your leadership and your support of these award-winning programs and projects. The Keeler Court development celebrated its grand opening last week on June 29th. Keeler Court provides 70 new affordable apartments for veterans who experienced homelessness and for families and seniors with low income. The Housing Commission awarded 7 Veteran Affairs Supportive Housing, or VASH vouchers, to Keeler Court to help pay rent for veterans who experienced homelessness. These vouchers are among the more than 10,600 housing solutions that our Homelessness Action Plan, Housing First San Diego, has created for San Diegans experiencing homelessness or who are at risk of homelessness. This board also authorized $24.7 million in multifamily housing revenue bonds for this development. Housing Commission Vice President of Multifamily Housing Finance, Jennifer Kruder, joined San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria, City Council President Sean Elo Rivera, Community Housing Works, which developed the property, and development partners for the grand opening event. Keeler Court was also one of 2 Housing Commission collaborations that received prestigious National Design Recognition Awards. The Pacific Coast Builders Conference recently presented its Gold Nugget Awards at the organization's 59th annual awards ceremony. Ivy Senior Apartments in Claremont received an award for the best affordable housing community with 30 to 60 dwelling units per acre. This development provides 52 affordable studios for seniors age 55 and older who experienced homelessness. The Housing Commission awarded 52 rental housing vouchers to help those residents pay their rent and a $3.5 million loan to support the development. Wakeland Housing and Development Corporation was the developer for this property, and Keeler Court received an award of merit in that same category. The Golden Nugget Awards are billed as the oldest and most prestigious design awards in the nation, and they are presented to recognize top innovators in design, planning, and development. This board is already aware of the final item I'm sharing today. However, for members of the public who may be watching, a working group has been formed to lead efforts to select the Housing Commission's next president and CEO. City Council President Sean Elo Rivera announced this group in a memo last week. This is a normal part of the process. We were expecting a group of this type to be created for this purpose. I will continue to serve as the Housing Commission's interim president and CEO until a permanent president and CEO is hired. And I will be happy to provide any assistance that the ad hoc working group may request as they go through this process. However, I previously have informed the offices of Mayor Todd Gloria and city council members, as well as this board, that I will not be a candidate for the permanent position. The ad hoc working group includes Vice Chair Klumpner and Commissioner Hester, as well as former Commissioner Roberta Spoon, who previously served 7 years on the board. Additional members of the working group include City Council members Joe LaCava and Chris Kate, and Community Housing Works former President and CEO Sue Reynolds. The timeline for the ad hoc working group efforts has not been specified, but ultimately the City Council, in its role as the Housing Authority, will interview finalists and select the Housing Commission's next President and CEO. Please know I am committed to the Housing Commission, to our incredible staff, to our mission and the people we serve, and I will work to make sure that the incoming President and CEO, when they are selected, is successful and that there is a smooth transition. This concludes my report this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to probably speak for all of the commissioners when I say, first off, yes, just huge round of applause. The amount of work, the sheer volume of what you did during COVID, outside of the execution and the commitment to vision, really just extraordinary. And I'm so glad that the town had an opportunity to celebrate you. It's a hefty looking award also. And congratulations everybody too on the other ones. I'm rather attached to the Ivy as it's right next to my house. So I was glad to see that one win an award. And with regard to the search for the new CEO, thank you to Commissioner Hester and to Vice Chair Klumpner for committing additional time to making sure that the successor for that role is prepared and we pick the absolute best person. I have no doubt there's going to be an enormous amount of interest. People like to come to San Diego. This is a huge and very successful operation. Undoubtedly, there's a lot of folks around the country eyeballing this and eyeballing all the talent, saying, love to get my hands on that. So thank you for that. And thank you, Jeff, for what you're doing here as well. I recognize it as a unique spot you were in. Undoubtedly, a lot of, I'm guessing, internal conversations you're probably having, a lot of soul searching as well. And so your decision to not throw your hat in the ring is one that I respect, but we should not overlook the very steady hand that you've brought. And I really, really have appreciated getting to work even closer with you. And I even see staff nodding, which is always such a good sign. But thank you for that. And thank you for keeping us all abreast. So next we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from the Housing Commission Board special meeting of June 10th, 2022. The phone line is now open to public comments about those minutes. You can call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. There were no written public comments submitted regarding the minutes, but again, that number is 833-610-2513. Scott, will you please let us know if we have any callers?
Yes, we have about 1 minute and 15 seconds left.
Thank you.
That concludes the time, and there are no callers.
Thank you. Sorry. Do we have a motion? Sorry, this includes public comment period for the minutes. Do we have any commissioners that want to make changes to the minutes, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Mitchell. I'll go ahead, second. Oh, Commissioner, I'll give the second to Vice Chair Klempner. We'll go ahead and vote. Vice Chair Klempner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hester.
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Vasquez.
Aye.
I'll add my vote in favor. Motion carries unanimously. I will not be proposing any items for the consent agenda this morning. As I mentioned, item 100 will be trailed to the end of today's meeting, so we'll go ahead and proceed with remaining items on our agenda. The PowerPoint presentations were emailed to the commissioners yesterday, July 7th, and are posted on the Housing Commission's website. We'll start with item 101, the contract with Yardi Systems Incorporated for an enterprise resources planning system. The phone line is now open for public comments about item 101. That number is 833-610-2513. You can call to be placed in the queue. There were no written public comments submitted regarding this item. However, that number is 833-610-2513. We'll take any public comments following the staff presentation, which will come to us from Senior Vice President of Information Technology, Beto Juarez. Beto, whenever you're ready. Actually, I'm not sure that I see Beto on our participants list right now.
This was Suket. I think he may have not come back from, I'll text him right now, but I'll go ahead and get started with the presentation.
I'll text him, Suket. As you get started, I'll text him.
Okay, thanks.
We can always go out of order too, if that's preferable.
No, I think we can get started.
Okay, take it away.
Good morning, commissioners. This morning I'm presenting a request to authorize a contract with Yardi for a software system known as the Enterprise Resource Planning or ERP system. My name is Suket Dayal. I'm filling in for Beto Juarez, our Senior Vice President of Information Technology and Chief Information Officer. Next slide, please. The Housing Commission has used Yardi's ERP system for approximately 10 years. The system has allowed the Housing Commission to integrate legacy applications and has automated functions in areas such as accounting, procurement, property management, finance, and real estate. Next slide, please. On February 15th of this year, the Housing Commission issued a competitive request for proposals or RFP. 7 firms attended a pre-proposal meeting that was on March 4th. When the proposal RFP closed for March 17th, we had received 2 proposals. One of them was non-responsive, and the other proposal was from Yardi. Again, Yardi is our current ERP provider. An evaluation committee reviewed the Yardi proposal and determined that was the most responsive and responsible proposal. Next slide, please. The proposed contract with Yardi is for 1 year with 4 one-year options to renew. The cost of the first year is $596,000. Funding for the proposed contract was included in the Housing Commission's fiscal year 2023 budget, which the Housing Authority approved last month. Funding for future years will be included in the budget approval process for those years. In each of the option years, the annual cost would be $645,000. If the Housing Commission exercises all of the renewal options, the total cost over the 5-year period would be $3.1 million. This contract with Yardi will allow the Housing Commission to continue to work efficiently, effectively, and accurately. The Yardi ERP system provides the opportunity to work on a cloud-hosted software platform with improved capabilities and functionalities such as improved financial management workflows, guaranteed security compliance, automatic encryption of data, and 24/7 system monitoring spreads across 12 data centers worldwide. Next slide, please. Yardi is also the integrated property management and voucher management system for the Housing Commission. Through our contract with Yardi, we will also help connect the people we serve on the Housing Commission through a variety of portals. As a moving to work agency, the Housing Commission has the flexibility to design innovative, cost-effective ways to provide federal housing assistance to our families. With this in mind, Yardi has been heavily customized for the Housing Commission. Several other public housing authorities also utilize the Yardi ERP system as shown on this slide. Next slide, please. Staff is recommending the Housing Commission Board take the actions detailed in the staff report and as shown on the slide. I'll pause for a few minutes. And we'll go to the next slide, please. This concludes the presentation. Oh, I see Beto's here to answer any questions. And thank you.
Excellent stand-in job. Thank you very much. Thanks for your flexibility. Beto, did you have anything you wanted to add before?
No, I wanted to apologize. My phone wasn't silent by the time I heard the message. But you know, I think Suket covered everything in terms of, you know, why this ERP system is so important to us. You know, it's been with the agency for the last 10 years after a huge consolidation, you know, of platforms that we had in the past. So as Suket explained, you know, this is this will continue, you know, to improve our efficiencies within the organization. And so I'm open for any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions or comments on this item?
Madam
Commissioner Mitchell.
Madam Chair, just a quick, I know that we talked about the importance of the system, and I was reading the report. And so I guess the question is that, you know, in the event that we had to have a change in contractor, the system would still be in place, correct, Beto?
Yes, the system's still in place. Yes, correct.
So, and then when in the report, it was kind of interesting. I was reading and I was a little confused. I talked about all the little things that had been required. And so there was one portion that talked about, you know, securing, there was a conversation about all the details that were happening and not all the details, I guess. Actually, that's a different report. Never mind. So I'm fine. That was my last question. I'll ask the next one later.
No worries. But yeah, the system would still be in place, Commissioner. Absolutely.
Commissioner Vasquez.
Yes, thank you. I guess my question is, with the term being for 1 year and then with the possibility of renewing every year, I haven't worked with this in the past. My question is, are they, you know, is there an opportunity for them to renegotiate the cost to use the service, the cost that we would have to pay for the services each year? And is there a reason if we're doing it just for a year that we're not doing it maybe for 2 years to take advantage of a flat fee? Just very curious. And I know like with commercial leases, it's normally 3 years. So just out of curiosity.
No, that's a great question, Commissioner Vasquez, for sure. You know, typically with these contracts, it's been, just to give you a little bit of context, when we first procured Yardi a few years ago, it took us about 1.5 to 2 years as a consortium with multiple agencies to come up with a more aggressive, you know, fee structure, right, for the platform. To answer your question, no, the price would not change unless we have either more users coming on board, like we did, you know, during the pandemic when we had to shift and provision additional portals and additional services like that. But no, they understand the relationship with public agencies, with PHA specifically, and they're really a great partner to us in terms of working with us if, you know, there's a huge shift in costs. The only other thing that could possibly be affected would be CPI, right? And for a long time, CPI costs were almost nothing. Obviously, due to the recent changes, you know, in the global economy, that was taken into consideration in this contract.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Then in years past, had it been for a longer term, and it's just because the economy of right now?
No, the terms are usually pretty standard. Typically, when you look at contracts, let's say in the private sector, for example, right, you look at 3 to 4, sometimes even 5-year contracts. Due to the fact that implementing, supporting an ERP system is such a huge cost from a resource and management perspective, you typically want to, you know, carve out a specific amount of time because there's an initial sort of takeoff and, you know, onboarding period that just kind of, you know, really takes up all the resources for a long time, right? So once it's in place, you know, with all the training and the support and the configuration, it makes it really difficult to change away to another system, if you will.
Okay, any other commissioner questions or a motion?
I'll make a motion. Second.
I'll go ahead and give it to Commissioner Hester, motion to approve, and then Commissioner Mitchell with the second. We'll go ahead and call the vote. Vice Chair Klempner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hester. Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Vasquez.
Aye.
We saw the thumbs up from Commissioner Hester, which will take us for I vote, and I will add my vote in favor. Vote carries unanimously. Our next item is 102, regarding additional funding for rapid rehousing programs. The phone line is now open for public comments about item 102. You can call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. There were no written public comments submitted regarding this item, but the number to call for public comment is 833-610-2513. We'll take public comments after the staff presentation, which will come to us from Director of Housing First Administration, Casey Snell, and Senior Homeless Programs Analyst, Melissa Colt. Please begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. We are here before you today to request approval for additional funding that has been identified for 3 rapid rehousing programs that have been in operation since May of 2019 and were the subject of a presentation to the board at the May 5th, 2022 meeting. Next slide, please. PATH, Homestart, and the Salvation Army were selected through a competitive procurement process in 2019 to administer 3 new rapid rehousing programs utilizing Homeless Emergency Aid Program, or HEAP funding. HEAP was a 2-year state-funded program that concluded on June 30th, 2021. These rapid rehousing programs began operating on May 1st, 2019 with a 2-year term. In May 2021, an extension year was approved to continue serving enrolled households, and funding transition from HEAP to Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention, or HAP funding. The extension year also provided the opportunity for the 3 rapid rehousing programs to support up to an additional 100 households using American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funding. Next slide, please. On May 5th, this board approved the award of $910,000 in HAP funds and authorized the execution of non-competitive agreements with PATH, Homestart, and the Salvation Army to support the continuation of these 3 rapid rehousing programs from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, with one 12-month option to renew contingent on funding being made available for this purpose. The approved funding supported the programs in serving approximately 63 households that were currently housed or enrolled and in households that were searching for housing at that time. However, the funding would not have been sufficient to continue to enroll and house new households in the program. The Board of Commissioners directed Housing Commission staff to assist commissioners in submitting a joint letter to the Housing Authority of the City of San Diego and the city's Homelessness Strategies and Solutions Department regarding the city's funding decisions that affected these programs. Housing Commission staff worked in collaboration with the city's Homelessness Strategies and Solutions Department to make an additional $619,027 of funding available for fiscal year 2023. This additional funding is from HAP and the city's Affordable Housing Fund, or AHF, which the Housing Commission administers. Next slide, please. As of May 31st, the 3 programs have helped secure stable housing for more than 150 households that previously experienced homelessness. With the previously approved funding, these rapid rehousing programs continue to serve households that are currently housed and those enrolled in the program and searching for housing. If the board approves the staff recommended actions today, the additional funding would allow these 3 programs to house approximately 60 to 80 additional households. That means the program would serve a total of approximately 140 households in fiscal year 2023, including both the currently enrolled households and the new households. Next slide, please.
This slide displays the $910,000 that the board approved on May 5th, as well as the additional $619,027 recommended for approval today. The additional funding would be awarded as follows: $235,820 for PATH, $186,690 for Homestart, and $196,517 for Salvation Army. The annual budget for these 3 programs will total $1,529,027. Next slide, please. Staff recommends that the Board of Commissioners take the actions detailed in the staff report shown on the next 2 slides. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. That concludes our presentation. We are available to answer questions. Hospa Kaka, the Director of the city's Homelessness Strategies and Solutions Department, is also here with us today.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions or comments? Okay, I'll go ahead and start. Oh, Commissioner Vasquez, I see your hand up. Commissioner Vasquez, go ahead.
Sorry, Chair Benedito, I perfectly fine for you to go first. I was just curious as to how staff found the money, and congratulations. And I'm excited about, being able to better fund the projects that are being available.
Absolutely. I'll start, but I'm also happy to pass it off to Hafsa. So in some of the decisions that were made to move a few of the programs, including family reunification program, over to the city, there is $394,000 in affordable housing funds that have traditionally been part of that program. What the city and the commission worked together to do is to keep that $394,000 with the commission. The city then backfilled that funding for the family reunification program with funding that they had identified in their budget for potentially some other resources. And I'll let Hafsa go into that detail. And then the city also identified the over $200,000 gap that was needed through HAP funding to commit to those. Hafsa, do you have anything else you want to add?
Sure. Hi, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me today. As I think, Lisa, you summed it up pretty well. Once it was brought to our attention that this was a concern, we were happy to review our HAP 3 funding, and we took on in Homeless Strategies and Solutions Department the Family Unification Fund, so that freed up the affordable housing dollars for the Housing Commission to go ahead and leverage those funds, and we added additional funds from our HAP 3. Of course, that meant that we decreased funding in other areas, but we were happy to and go ahead and increase funding in rapid rehousing and review the outcomes for next year.
Anything else, commissioners?
We'll just add, obviously when we heard about this at the last meeting, I want to commend everybody for working diligently and quickly to get this addressed. We all understand that the situation is not going to get better without the right structure in place, and this is a key component of the structure. So thank you very much to the mayor's office and to Jeff and Lisa, everybody, for working diligently to get this done.
Absolutely. I agree with both of the commissioners' comments about the level of collaboration that had to occur, and I'm sure that there was a boatload of meetings, and there's an immense amount of pressure on any budget, and I can appreciate that someone somewhere is down a couple $100,000, but in looking through the scope of the impact, that 1.5 million and change for this program, the bang for your buck here, that's what, roughly, I'm really bad at math, but now we're talking like $10,000 to help each family if we were to balance all this out evenly. And to keep them from homelessness or to move them so quickly out of homelessness versus what we talk about in some of our projects, which are equally important, but $500,000 for a unit, this stabilizes families. And I'm just so glad that we were able to agree on the importance of it. And it's very fair that we'll be reviewing outcomes, and I welcome those discussions as well. And I'm just very, very pleased that we're having this conversation today. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the city side. Thank you to the commission staff. Vice Chair Klempner, you're off mute.
Yeah, I'll just echo what has been said so far. And also just more generally, we have a lot of programs, obviously, and it's a constant trade-off between one thing or another. But I'm very happy to see this continue, in large part because anybody can look around and realize that with the current economic situation and inflation and rising housing costs in particular in this region, the number of families that are housing insecure, unstable, teetering on homelessness or dipping into experiencing homelessness is rising. And, I think as compared to prior years where there were different drivers and different types of people entering homelessness, our ability to help people who just need an economic boost momentarily and keep them out of that chronic homelessness just seems like such a high value proposition. I mean, we see over and over and over again how much more expensive it gets the longer people are in a state of homelessness. And so our ability to shorten that and prevent it from becoming a more severe situation that requires more intensive resources just seems like such a no-brainer. So thank you to everybody that made that happen.
Thank you. I know I've called out Hafsa, but Lisa, Casey, and Melissa, who I understand it's your first time presenting to us. I thought you were a new face. It's a pleasure to see you. Nice to meet you on the Zoom side of things. But thank you all for the work that you've done. Is there a motion or any other questions, comments?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hester, second by Commissioner Mitchell. We'll go ahead and call the vote. Vice Chair Klempner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hester.
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Vasquez.
Aye.
I'll add my vote in favor. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Item 103 is the ratification of the contract for security services with Universal Protection Services LP. I apologize. The phone line is now open for public comments on item 103. You can call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. No written public comments were submitted regarding this item, but again, the number to call is 833-610-2513. We'll take any public comments following the staff presentation, which will come to us from Senior Vice President of Housing, Finance, and Property Management, Colin Miller. Colin, whenever you're ready.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. The item before you this morning is a request to ratify an existing contract with Universal Protection Services LP to continue to provide security services at the Housing Commission's main office building. Next slide, please. The Housing Commission's main office building at 1122 Broadway in downtown San Diego is known as Smart Corner. It consists of 5 stories of Class A office space over a 4-story subterranean parking garage. This building requires unarmed, public reception-oriented security services 24 hours per day, 7 days per week. Security services under this contract are provided at all office spaces within Smart Corner building, the P1 and P2 levels of the parking garage, and the perimeter of the building's exterior. Interior patrols of the ground floor retail spaces currently occupied by the commercial tenants on the ground floor and the second floor are not included as part of this contract. The essential security service has been in place continuously without interruption since Housing Commission staff started occupying Smart Corner in 2008. In early 2020, a contract renewal for security services was approaching its end date, and on February 4th, 2020, the Housing Commission staff initiated a request for proposals, or RFP, for these security services in accordance with the Housing Commission's Statement of Procurement Policy. Next slide, please. At the time, proposals were due on March 3rd, 2020. The Housing Commission received 11 written proposal responses, 9 of which were found to be responsive. An evaluation committee subsequently evaluated, scored, and ranked the proposal responses based on the following criteria: cost, experience, technical approach, and qualifications. Based on the proposal reviews and scoring performed by the evaluation committee, Allied Universal Security Services was deemed to have the highest ranking. Further, the cost proposal has been determined to be fair and reasonable, including increases year over year with a proposed annual increase of 3.1% over the 5-year period, which included all of the potential renewal options. The evaluation committee unanimously recommended moving forward with steps to award the contract to Allied Universal. In early March of 2020, staff prepared a report to present to the Housing Commission Board for consideration at the April 3rd, 2020 board meeting, as this time-sensitive contract was due to start April 16th, 2020. Concurrently, the outbreak of COVID-19 was accelerating and evolving into a global pandemic, resulting in the cancellation of the April 2020 Housing Commission board meeting. As an interim solution, staff opted to exercise the President and CEO's ability to enter into a contract for services up to the $250,000 approval limit without board approval. This action is permissible pursuant to Section 3.2 of the Housing Commission's procurement policy and the delegation of authority to the President and CEO through the Housing Authority's approval of the Housing Commission's annual budget. An initial contract for that amount was entered into. Staff intended to present the contract to the board as soon as practicable in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, but not later than October 15th, 2020. This approach has occurred on rare occasions in the past without issue. Next slide, please. In the meantime, the COVID-19 pandemic continued, and staff were required to make major adjustments to daily operations as a result. This included the creation and implementation of numerous COVID-19 related policies and programs to ensure that essential operations continued safely and hygienically. This also included implementing safeguards so that existing residents would be able to remain in their homes. The activities staff focused on included, but were not limited to, closing of the offices and moving staff to a remote work environment, issuing laptop computers, moving to virtual meetings, and establishing a secure virtual private network, developing and adopting property maintenance protocols that involve major process changes, training staff on newly implemented personal protective equipment or PPE requirements, as well as procuring services typically not required due to modified operations, acquiring PPE and other supplies that were in short supply at the time, including developing an inventory and distribution system for those supplies. Next slide, please. Additional activities included creating, implementing, and informing Housing Commission residents about a COVID-19 hardship program for Housing Commission residents experiencing loss of income due to the pandemic, implementing an online rent portal, navigating legislative actions related to the eviction moratoria, for example, AB 3088, SB 91, and AB 832, as well as local ordinances, as well as writing a scope of work for a consultant to assess and recommend modifications to the workplace, including PPE requirements, process changes, and policy considerations related to an eventual return to office, and awarding that contract and proceeding with tasks associated with that assignment. During staff's performance of these activities during the challenging and unprecedented circumstances of the pandemic, the board report seeking approval for the additional time for the initial term of the security services contract and renewal options was inadvertently overlooked. When the end of the first year was approaching, Housing Commission staff processed the customary execution of the first option to renew the contract. During the second renewal option this year, the Housing Commission's General Counsel discovered that staff had not presented the contract to the Housing Commission Board in 2020 as initially planned. The actions recommended to you today are to rectify this administrative oversight. Next slide, please. The circumstances involved with this contract have not resulted in any lapse in security for the Smart Corner building, and the Housing Commission has not incurred any additional charges. Allied Universal Security Services has performed in an exemplary manner during the tenure of their service at the Housing Commission, especially in light of the challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic, and remains a valued contractor in good standing with the Housing Commission. Housing Commission staff has recently identified and implemented additional preventative measures to avoid this type of administrative oversight in the future. These include staff will ensure the proper board authority has been received prior to exercising a renewal option by adding the step to the procedural review. Staff will also use a Tableau dashboard that provides a view of contracts and percentage of time used and money expended. In addition, an automated purchase order budget report will alert key staff on a weekly basis when contracts have reached 75% and 95% of thresholds expended capacity. Additionally, Yardi contract summary reports will make information available for the contract record in Yardi, which provides a view of the contract amounts invoiced and remaining. Lastly, a procurement analyst will upload prior contract information to a document set in SharePoint when routing a contract for internal review, where board approvals are verified in the process. Next slide, please. Staff is recommending that the Housing Commission Board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on this slide to ratify and approve the retroactive award of the contract for security services. Next slide, please. This concludes my presentation. We are available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. I have mild trauma from being reminded of all of the chaos in the early days of coronavirus, actually. I see Commissioner Vasquez has her hand up. Commissioner Vasquez.
Thank you. Appreciate staff rectifying the situation. It's difficult to maybe have a lot of balls in the air, having to make sure that things get done that are regularly scheduled and correcting things from the past. So I appreciate the effort. I was a little confused about the contract. I just wanted clarification as to the total cost is going to be the 2.3 million in each option you have or each year it seems to go up if we exercise the option. My assumption based off of the terms is that for the first year we'll pay the 437,000, the second year will be 452, etc. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Commissioner Hester.
Yes, thank you. I'm curious if this contractor is covered under a collective bargaining agreement with a particular union.
So I would ask that if Deborah or Jennifer McKinney, Deborah's our Senior Vice President of Compliance and Equity Assurance. Jennifer McKinney is our Vice President of Property Management. If either of you can speak to that, I appreciate it.
I don't have that information off the top of my head, but I can quick check.
I don't know either.
Yep, we'll get that information.
If I can just add to that, Madam Chair, what is our, you talked about procurement criteria. Is that, does that not, and part of part of that criteria is sort of the cost. So I wanted to see if I could look at, I'm sorry, I'm coughing here. Trying to see if we can review the procurement criteria.
You're talking about the selection criteria?
Yes, the selection criteria and what we're looking for in a contractor, right?
Sure. I think, was there a slide on that, Colin? If not, I'll just talk off the top of my head. We need to make sure they're in good standing. When we do an initial review, when we a responsibility or responsiveness review, we need to make sure they're a responsible vendor. And by that, they need to be registered with the city. We need to make sure that they have a proper license and they have all the insurance requirements. Those are some typical things, if that's specifically what you're talking about. We do not and cannot require them to be union affiliated or what have you, but that doesn't preclude them from doing that. So, and in addition, we do some background checks, we do some reference checks, all those types of things. We look at cost when we do an evaluation. We look at how their proposal responds to the scope of work. And I think a key thing that we do is their past experience. And for sure, the reference check is key. We also, after we do an award, we do have a contract review process, so that at the end of the contract, we reach out to our different client departments and we ask them to fill out a questionnaire. And if prevailing wages were part of it, we have them fill that out to make sure that they complied with labor compliance regulations and what have you. So that's incorporated into our contracts, a contract evaluation. And if people fail that, then that's a reason for us to determine that they're not responsible.
I appreciate that, Ms. Deborah. I wanted, what I didn't hear is sort of their record on how they treat their employees. Are there any labor charges against them, filings of an unfair treatment, that sort of thing. I think as a agency servicing low-income families, this is an industry that is covered in that low income capacity, right? So when we say cost, there has to be a balance. Like, what is the value of our agency in terms of, we're building housing, and I know PLA is mostly on contractor. So I just want to raise that and elevate that as one of the things that, again, we can improve upon when we're doing contracting work.
Well, and then just so you know, they have to be in good standing with the state, and some of that is part of that evaluation process. I'll double check to see what all the elements are for being in good standing, but I do believe that could be one of them. But I will get back to you directly on that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Okay, Commissioner Mitchell.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. I know that we're in the middle of the contract now, and I commend staff for figuring out the oversight, Colin. Good job, and for putting a structure in that'll prevent this from happening again. My question is obviously when we were launching the contract, you know, our operation was a little different. We were in full. Well, COVID obviously has changed our operation. I guess this is the fair way to say that. You know, so 24-hour security services are still important and still required. And, you know, I think at some point the new norm is Jeff is navigating that, and how many times everybody's in the office and when they're not. But when you were thinking about this, going forward, and when we go, the new norm is that, you know, we're back in the office 3-4 days a week, or, you know, 2-3 days a week. You know, are there changes to the contract that will be required when there's more activity in the building, or is it just right now it's just one flat and we're done until this contract ends?
So my understanding is the contract that we have in place covers the staffing for the security that will be in place, regardless of the amount of commission staff. And so or public activity, or public coming in and out of the building. Right. It's more than just our staff. They're doing after hours. You know, the Family Justice Center is a 24-hour operation, so people are coming into the lobby 24/7, or can be. Our downtown location, we're adjacent. You can probably hear the trolley in the background. It's the busiest trolley stop in the city. So the exterior building is a focus of after hours. And so your points are very well taken. I think as we change and transition, as COVID has changed how we do business, some things have remained the same. The building exterior, there's still a need for it. Yeah. Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure that was clear. So no further questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I don't have anything further to add. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, motion from Vice Chair Klempner.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Mitchell. We will go ahead and call the vote. Vice Chair Klempner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hester.
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Vasquez.
Aye.
I'll add my vote in favor. Motion carries unanimously. Next is item 104, the Ramada Inn purchase and sale agreement. The phone line is now open for public comments about item 104. Please call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. There were no written public comments submitted regarding this item. Again, that number is 833-610-2513. We'll take public comments after the staff presentation. And the staff presentation comes from Executive Vice President of Real Estate, Emily Jacobs, and Vice President of Real Estate, Finance, and Acquisitions, Buddy Four, whenever you're both ready.
Great, thank you. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. The item we're presenting today is a request for approval to enter into a purchase and sale agreement and begin the due diligence process for the potential purchase of a hotel property located at 3737 to 3747 Midway Drive in Council District 2. After extensive review, and if we receive board's approval and needed funding, the property would be acquired and converted into permanent affordable rental housing with supportive services for individuals experiencing homelessness. Next slide. The Community Action Plan on Homeless for the City of San Diego identified the need for over 2,600 new permanent supportive housing units over 10 years. The plan also noted that 60% of these units, or over 1,500, need to be developed within the first 4 years. In addition, on February 7th of 2022, the City Council renewed its declaration of an ongoing shelter crisis in the city, To help address these issues, the Housing Commission has worked to identify properties with the potential to be converted into permanent supportive housing. The property we're presenting to you today is one of these sites. Next slide. The Ramada Inn consists of 64 hotel rooms, a lobby area, and a small laundry area. This is a 2-story building originally constructed around 1959 in the Midway area. Next slide. This slide shows an aerial view of the property. The structure is U-shaped with parking in the center. Next slide. This slide is a more distant aerial view, which provides context as to the location of the site and its proximity to retail and other service amenities. The site is immediately adjacent to a neighborhood shopping center containing retail tenants, including Vons, Marshalls, and multiple quick serve food options. In addition, the site is within 300 feet of a bus stop, which is Transit Stop 35, linking Old Town to Ocean Beach. Next slide.
So under the terms of the proposed purchase and sales agreement, or PSA, the due diligence process will start as soon as the PSA is executed. The due diligence period ends 120 days after the PSA is executed. The purchase of the property would be contingent upon approvals from the Housing Commission Board and the Housing Authority of the City of San Diego. The purchase price will not exceed $11,623,000. Within 5 days of execution of the PSA, the Housing Commission would deposit an initial deposit of $50,000 into escrow. This deposit is refundable. At the end of the due diligence period, the Housing Commission will decide whether or not to purchase the property. So if the Housing Commission decides to purchase the property, an additional $50,000 would be deposited into escrow for a total deposit of $100,000. At this point, the deposit becomes non-refundable and is credited against the purchase price. However, if at that point the Housing Commission declines to purchase the property, the original $50,000 deposit is refunded to the Housing Commission. If the Commission proceeds with the purchase, escrow would close 12 months from the date the PSA is executed. The Housing Commission would actually have an additional 6 months extension. So put more simply, the Housing Commission would have site control of the property for 18 months with only $100,000 at risk. This would allow more time and opportunities to determine the financing plan and close escrow. Next slide. So the Housing Commission performs extensive due diligence on a property before deciding whether or not to proceed with the purchase. However, before staff can commence the due diligence process, the Housing Commission needs to enter into the PSA. The PSA enables the Housing Commission to obtain site control necessary for the due diligence to occur. While the PSA is a binding agreement with the property seller, it does not obligate the Housing Commission to purchase the property. If the due diligence process identifies potential issues, the Housing Commission can decide not to purchase the property, and the deposit at that point would be returned. Once the PSA and the escrow is open, the Housing Commission will start due diligence activities to assess the items such as, but not limited to, zoning conformance, the presence of potential environmental hazards, immediate and long-term capital needs, pest control, unique conditions and constraints, American with Disabilities Act and path of travel review, and any other areas that need additional review. In addition, during the due diligence period, the Housing Commission would obtain appraisals, including the peer review of an appraisal and market studies for the site. The due diligence period enables the Housing Commission to freely investigate the site to identify potential risks, if any, associated with purchasing the property and converting it to permanent affordable rental housing. It's essential for the due diligence process to begin as soon as possible. The Housing Commission anticipates that the state of California will make additional funding available this fall through the Home Key program to support the creation of permanent supportive housing to address homelessness. The Housing Commission will need to complete its due diligence and be able to decide whether or not to purchase this property in time to potentially apply for those Home Key funds. The Housing Commission Board will have additional opportunities to review the potential acquisition and determine whether to authorize the Housing Commission to purchase the property after we've obtained more information through the due diligence process. Next slide, please. So approving the actions before you today would authorize the Housing Commission to expend up to $100,000 in deposits and up to $250,000 on due diligence activities, as previously discussed. This table shows the proposed sources and uses of the funds. Next slide, please. The staff recommends the Housing Commission Board take the actions detailed in the staff report and as shown on the next two slides. Next slide. And next slide. So this concludes staff's presentation, and we're happy to answer questions that you have.
Thank you. Scott, do we have any callers?
Excuse me, there are no callers on this item.
Okay. Gosh, just move my mouse. You all just disappeared. Thank you. Are there commissioner questions or comments?
Madam Chair, I just have one comment. You know, as I was reading the report, you know, it did dawn on me, you know, tracking the progress, you know, Mr. Davis, I think that in the plan for 2,659, you know, supportive housing unit PSHs, you know, over the next 10 years, and 60% of them in the first 4. What is, I can't remember in the plan, was that based on with a start in 22 or 21 or 20? I can't remember what that was, Lisa.
So the benchmark was set in 2019, so around October of 2019.
Okay.
And for the PSH units specifically, and there's several sort of different categories, it was 2802, 60% in 4 years would be 1,681, which we are at 1,433 approved, which is 85% of that 4-year goal. So we're actually ahead of schedule in that particular area. Of that 1,433, 1,227 are in use, which is about 73%. So we're actually doing quite well towards that goal. But as you're aware, Commissioner Mitchell, the Leadership Council for the Community Action Plan recently tasked the Housing Commission and the implementation team, which includes the city and the RTFH, to re-engage with Corporation for Supportive Housing to come in and recalculate those numbers to see if our goals have changed. Obviously, we've been through a pandemic since this was accepted. So we have just finalized the scope of work for CSH, and the city and the commission, RTFH, will be working with them to reset our City of San Diego numbers, which will probably come out later this year.
Yeah, it stood out in the report, and I just wanted to make sure that we were all aware and on the same page. We have a lot of work to do. Although you're right, Lisa, we are 80% there towards the original numbers. I can't imagine that the numbers aren't going to be changed when the new work is done. And you know, the talk around the state is with the eviction moratorium protections rolling off July 1. You know, there's going to be a lot that's happening in the space, and you know, so if we could get at least I would appreciate it in the at the next meeting if we can, you know, just provide a one-pager with the numbers so that we're all operating from the same, you know, the same understanding of where we are based on the old numbers in 2019 and the progress we're making. I mean, I commend the team for being at the 80% number of the 1681, but again, I have a feeling that these numbers are woefully short, and that's what the new calculation will show.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the commissioners? Commissioner or Vice Chair Klempner?
Thank you for the update that we just went through. Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo that. That is great news that we're on track with our current target, and I'm glad that we're reassessing the target as soon as we get our arms wrapped around something. I suppose it's time to move the bar appropriately to where the need is at. It seems like that's sort of the treadmill that this endeavor is on. I just really appreciate how hard staff has worked to find a property that will be eligible for home key funds. It's just so critical, and you know, it's both critical that we make use of that funding, and also that we, you know, do it right and carefully, and do all the due diligence. So I look forward to the due diligence coming back. I'm glad that we'll be getting access, and fingers crossed. So thank you.
Anything else from the commissioners? I think everything that was said, I agree with. I'm very hopeful that this can get over the finish line. And we're not going to take anything for granted. We're still early in the process, but great location, particularly with the future of what this area is going to look like. Really exciting to have a property there. Commissioner Vasquez.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add one more thing. I really appreciate the thorough executive summary that's been given regarding the pertinent information. The only other thing I'd like to add is for the comparable market acquisitions, if we could include the date of sale so that we know, what the value is based off of the time frame, right? So we're purchasing this in 2022 versus when the other properties had been purchased. I think right now it's in our favor in comparison to previous transactions. So it's not, I imagine that that the purchase, that there's not going to be that big of a discrepancy, but just moving forward when the market turns, knowing when acquisition, the date, either the date of the contract or the date of the sale would be appreciated.
Sure.
Anything further?
Just one clarification, Jeff and Lisa, there is another round coming up in the fall, correct?
Yes.
Well, I'll go ahead and make the motion.
I'll second.
That's what I was going to do.
All right, so we all just kind of came off mute together. All right, so there's a motion and a second. We'll go ahead and call the vote. Vice Chair Klempner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hester. I see that we've got a thumbs up. Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Vasquez.
Aye.
I'll add my vote in favor. Motion carries unanimously. Our next item is 105, the informational workshop on the Housing Commission strategic plan. The phone line is now open for public comments on item 105. You can call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. There were no written public comments submitted regarding this item, but again, the phone number is 833-610-2513. We'll take public comments after the staff presentation, which will come from Interim Vice President and CEO Jeff Davis.
Thank you, commissioners. Today, we're going to be providing a progress report on the Housing Commission's strategic plan for fiscal years 2022 through 2024. Strategic planning is very important for every organization, and certainly that includes the Housing Commission. It provides us with a guide for progress as we move forward. You'll recall that we developed this plan with important input from a diverse group of community stakeholders, including this board, council members, our staff, and the people that we serve. The COVID-19 pandemic reinforced the importance of the broad, bold vision that we adopted through this plan. Next slide. So the vision is that everyone in the city of San Diego has a home they can afford. A continuum of housing options is necessary to help families with low income. Our strategic priorities include advancing homelessness solutions, as well as helping families with low income become more self-sufficient and improve the quality of their life. A household with low income, I should say, as households with low income increase their earnings, they need to have options to which they can afford to move up. This frees up affordable housing for low income families and relieves downward pressure in the housing market. Housing that is affordable for middle income families is essential for this to occur and to provide opportunities to address the so-called missing middle. So our strategic plan also prioritizes increasing and preserving housing solutions for both households with low income and those with middle income. We also recognize that circumstances can change, so our strategic plan is a flexible plan. We can make revisions as needed to address evolving situations that affect the Housing Commission, our programs, and the people we serve. The Housing Commission strategic plan reflects the breadth and diversity of housing assistance programs we administer and operate in the city. Our strategic plan provides the mission, vision, purpose, core values, and strategic priorities for the Housing Commission. Our decisions, initiatives, and day-to-day activities for 3 years are guided by this plan. So tomorrow will be the first anniversary of this board's approval of the strategic plan. In our first year, we have made progress in several areas in support of our strategic priorities, and you'll see that in today's presentation. So now I'll ask Lisa Jones, our Executive Vice President of Strategic Initiatives, to begin the discussion of the elements of our strategic plan.
Good morning. As Jeff mentioned, the Housing Commission's vision is that everyone in the city of San Diego has a home they can afford. This speaks to knowledge that though our area of focus is affordable housing, we also need to identify ways to support increasing middle income housing through advocacy and policy development. Our mission continues to focus on reaching those in greatest need of housing resources. The Housing Commission fosters social and economic stability for vulnerable populations in the city of San Diego through quality, affordable housing, opportunities for financial self-reliance, and homelessness solutions. Next slide. Social benefit agencies are more frequently stating a purpose that speaks to their impact in the community. With this strategic plan, the Housing Commission adopted a purpose statement for the first time. This statement reflects the agency's experiences implementing critical new programs to serve people as quickly as possible during the pandemic. It also reflects direction and input received from the board over the year preceding the approval of the strategic plan. Our purpose: to help individuals, families, and the San Diego community thrive. Core values are the heart of how we do what we do every day, how we interact with our customer and community stakeholders, and how we conduct our work and make day-to-day decisions. Our values, along with the other key components of the strategic plan, create a framework through which our board and policy leaders can filter policy direction, and staff carries out day-to-day decision-making that advances us towards achieving our mission and vision. At the Housing Commission, we serve our clients with equity, dignity, and respect, are committed to excellence and innovation in all we do, and believe in transparency and being good financial stewards. This strategic plan also builds upon the creation of our equity assurance team at the Housing Commission. The plan includes a statement on equity and inclusivity as a key value and approach in implementing the strategic plan and conducting our work. At the Housing Commission, we are about people. The Housing Commission embraces diverse approaches and points of view to improve our programs, projects, and policies. We believe in delivering programs and services in innovative and inclusive ways, and we are committed to advancing equity and inclusion both internally and externally. As we review the 5 key strategic priorities and their related areas of focus, you can see common themes recur. Approaching our planning efforts and work from an equity, inclusion, and access perspective, focusing efforts on communication and engagement strategies to key stakeholders and to underserved or harder to reach communities in need of our programs to increase awareness and access, embedding the values and objectives of this plan in our agency culture so it is not something that happens on top of or in the margins of what we do, but it is how and why we do what we do every day. Next slide. Through the planning process, 5 strategic priority areas were identified: increasing and preserving housing solutions, helping families increase opportunities for self-sufficiency and quality of life, investing in our team, advancing homelessness solutions, supporting the City of San Diego Community Action Plan on Homelessness, and advocacy, communication, and public engagement. Advocacy comes up as an important part of several strategies. This reflects the Housing Commission Board's direction to further the agency's effort in influencing and helping frame policy early in the legislative process through ongoing relationship building and providing recommendations as policy develops at our local, state, and national levels. Over the next several slides, we will overview first-year action items. On Wednesday afternoon, the board was also provided a more comprehensive status report, but we didn't want to spend half an hour trying to give you an update on everything. So we're going to cover first-year action items, and then the status report also includes overviews of how we're progressing towards our SMART objectives. Now, John Rios, our Director of Integrated Strategies, will discuss the strategic priority areas and progress. Next slide.
Thank you. Good morning. For increasing and preserving housing solutions, the 4 areas of focus are production, identify opportunities to produce and retain affordable and middle-income housing and permanent supportive housing solutions, preservation, preserve existing deed-restricted affordable housing or naturally occurring affordable housing, funding, identify and pursue additional funding mechanisms dedicated to increasing housing solutions, and advocacy, taking a proactive approach to influence legislative action and create the best opportunities for our region. Understanding that progress on this priority requires significant collaboration and support from multiple stakeholders and policymakers, key indicators for success were identified. Next slide, please. Developments that would create or preserve 2,319 affordable rental housing units have received approvals from the Housing Commission Board for Financing. These are projects that involve new construction or rehabilitation of existing properties and are currently pending completion. In fiscal year 2022, 989 affordable housing units were completed. Report. The indicators report is included in the strategic plan progress report that was emailed to you on Wednesday, July 6th. This report provides a quick reference display of affordable units in the development pipeline, completed units, the number of permanent supportive housing units to address homelessness, and the breakdown of units by income level and council district. Access to public transportation is an important factor for opportunities for self-sufficiency and quality of life. So our affordable housing indicators report also shows the average distance from transit in miles from affordable housing properties. The average distance from transit is 8/100ths of a mile. An example of that format for this report is shown on this slide. Next slide, please. The Federal Emergency Housing Voucher Program supports the strategic priority as well as others in this strategic plan. In response to the pandemic, the American Rescue Plan Act included 70,000 emergency housing vouchers nationwide. Of these, 480 were awarded to the Housing Commission. Emergency housing vouchers help households that are experiencing homelessness, are at risk of experiencing homelessness, are fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, or human trafficking, or that are recently experienced or that recently experienced homelessness, and for whom rental assistance will help prevent their homelessness at a high risk of housing instability. We collaborated with the San Diego Regional Continuum of Care and victims services providers to receive direct referrals for the 4 vulnerable population groups in the emergency housing voucher program serves. We work with 17 community service providers to support families as they navigate the eligibility determination and lease-up processes and housing stabilization services. Each household has access to our landlord engagement assistance program, housing specialists who provide them tailored housing leads and can assist with landlord communication. Households receive financial assistance for application fees, security deposits, and other moving costs. Landlords receive a leasing incentive for renting to these households and have access to a landlord contingency fund if a situation occurs in which damages to the unit exceed the security deposit. As of June 30th, 2022, 94% of the Housing Commission's 480 emergency housing vouchers have been awarded to families that have leased a rental home and are searching for a rental home with their vouchers. Preserving affordable housing that already exists in the city is also essential to addressing the housing crisis. Progress towards this part of the strategic priority includes the Affordable Housing Preservation Collaborative, which the Housing Commission convened. This collaborative includes representatives of affordable housing property owners, real estate developers, housing advocates, and tenants' rights groups. The collaborative's objectives are shown on this slide. The creation of the Preservation Collaborative was one of the 7 actions to implement a strategy of affordable housing preservation that the City Council approved on October 27th, 2020. Next slide, please. Helping families increase opportunities for self-sufficiency and quality of life is our next strategic priority. The areas of focus are to conduct a needs assessment of existing program participants and residents to determine opportunities for quality of life enhancements for residents or participants. Explore an online tenant portal to streamline the application process. And at the same time, we will ensure sufficient ways and resources are available so customers who may have language or technology or other barriers can access our programs. Additional areas of focus are to increase awareness of existing and or new Housing Commission resources, including developing a communications plan, increase awareness among current and potential customers, and explore new funding structures to support priority programming and identified quality of life opportunities. Next slide, please. We will be procuring an outside consultant to assist with the needs assessment of existing program participants and anticipate issuing a request for proposals for that initiative this summer. In the first year of the strategic plan, we have continued to apply for new funding to support our programs and opportunities for the families we assist. For example, last fall, Local Initiative Support Corporation, or LISC, awarded funds to the Housing Commission to develop a digital media training program in collaboration with San Diego Continuing Education. This program requires approximately 6 months for participants to receive a certificate. 12 people participating in the Housing Commission's Achievement Academy are currently in this digital media training program. Each student in the program also will have 1 month paid training, 1 month paid training program through a Housing Commission collaborative with Mixed-State Communications. Our workforce development program also provides households with low income the opportunity to receive a certificate in personal training through a new collaboration with Lionel University. This began in May. We currently have 15 people participating in this program. The program includes partnerships with local gyms to help employment opportunities when participants complete their personal training certificate program in August. To further help families, we serve in support of our strategic priority. The Housing Commission also launched a digital inclusion project. We mailed a survey to more than 2,000 residents of affordable housing units in the Housing Commission owns or manages. Approximately 17%, or 341 residents, participated in that survey. The survey provided important information about how households access the internet, the costs they incur for internet service, and the financial hardship such costs prevent for many households, and their concerns about internet service. Among residents who do not have internet service, the top reason they cited was that internet service was too expensive, followed by the cost of devices to access the internet. The Housing Commission is researching potential sources of funding to make services sustainable for the long term. We are also collaborating with SANDAG to raise awareness about programs available to help households with low income access internet services and obtain discounts on devices that will help address the digital divide. The Housing Commission issued a request for qualifications on May 17th to identify organizations with which we can collaborate with to provide training and education programs for residents and potentially access no cost or low cost hardware for broadband service. That procurement process is pending completion. In addition, the Housing Commission is currently working with a third-party consultant on a security assessment project to review security in place at specified properties owned or managed by the Housing Commission or its nonprofit affiliate. The objective of this project is to determine ways to enhance existing site security for residents and on-site staff while using a client-centered approach that maintains a welcoming environment and supports a sense of community. Next slide, please. This priority is investing in our team. Areas of focus are enhancing communication and engagement with staff, auditing employee benefits, and exploring additional workplace programs such as health and wellness programs, conducting a classification and compensation study, ensuring team members have the training and resources needed to support the Housing Commission's vision and grow individually, including determining specific areas in which training and resources may be needed, ensuring the Housing Commission has the people it needs today and tomorrow to achieve success, and ensuring team members have the necessary technologies such as hardware and software to support the Housing Commission's vision as we implement this plan. Next slide, please. The last classification and compensation study occurred in 2016, and the new study is underway now. Kaufman Associates has been selected as a partner for this project, which will be implemented in 3 phases. The classification study involves position description questionnaires and employee interviews. The compensation review will review compensation levels based on the classification review and compare them to market data. And then a final report and recommendations will include an implementation plan and range adjustments if applicable. We anticipate completing this project by the end of this calendar year. Additional projects that are currently being developed are shown on this slide. These include an employee engagement survey that will help identify opportunities for enhanced communication and engagement with staff to encourage productivity and retention. We're also in the process of preparing a request for proposals for a consultant to work with us to establish a business continuity and succession planning program for key positions. Next slide, please. The next priority is advancing homelessness solutions, supporting the city of San Diego by supporting the city of San Diego's community action plan on homelessness. The key here is to continue to define the Housing Commission's leadership role in addressing homelessness and coordinate activities to support progress for the community action plan. The Housing Commission currently employs a project manager who supports the community action plan's implementation team and leadership council, and a variety of other underlying working groups and activities. These include maintaining public-facing dashboards that report on progress towards goals. The area of focus for this strategic priority are continuing to support the community action plan on homelessness, establishing an internal working group to evaluate all Housing Commission's divisions to look for opportunities to support the action plan, and finally evaluating funding and infrastructure and capacity, including staffing, technology, training, communications, and partnerships. The measurable objectives for this strategy mirror the plan's 3-year goals to reduce unsheltered veterans and youth homelessness. Next slide, please. The Housing Commission worked to support the partnership between the City of San Diego and the County of San Diego to implement the harm reduction shelter in December, and to develop a new program model with the new sprung structure anticipated to open in July. The harm reduction shelter provides case management, permanent housing resources, behavioral health services, and medical care to a maximum of 44 people at a time. The new shelter with beds for up to 150 people will provide access to site behavioral health care assessment, care coordination, and connection to a variety of community resources made available to eligible participants through the County Behavioral Health Services Department. The Lucky Duck Foundation provided the sprung structure and is funding the construction of the shelter at the County of San Diego owned site on Rosecrans Street. The Housing Commission contracts with Alpha Projects to operate both of these shelters. In support of this strategic priority, the Housing Commission's Homelessness Housing Innovations Division has also implemented enhanced standardized policies and procedures for the homelessness services contracts the Housing Commission manages. For example, shelter intakes are coordinated system-wide to create a more person-centered access to shelter beds. Outreach activities are also coordinated, and housing-focused shelter practices have been developed in collaboration with OrgCode, an industry consulting expert. Staffing capacity remains a challenge in addressing homelessness. To help address this issue, the Housing Commission continues to collaborate with the San Diego City College on homelessness program for Engaged Educational Resources, or PEER. This program works to develop the workforce needed for homelessness programs in the city. The Housing Commission is also working with third-party consultants on a comprehensive compensation analysis of the homelessness services sector. This analysis will consider metrics such as pay equity to attract and retain people for key positions. The compensation study also will research compensation rates for related social service sector employees and homelessness service workers in similar high-cost living regions. This will assess parity of income, including focusing on related industries that have positions that have high activity around crisis response and trauma care, to ensure that competitive rate assessments also consider other sectors with similar work environments or challenges. In the area of homelessness, contracts with the Legal Aid Society to operate the City of San Diego's eviction prevention program. This program was a subject of an informational workshop at the board's June meeting. The eviction prevention program launched in December and will continue through June 2023. It provides legal assistance to help renters with low income in the city of San Diego who are facing eviction for not paying their rent due to the financial effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide, please.
The final strategic priority is advocacy, communication, and public engagement. The areas of focus are advocacy, establish priority policy areas, and a policy engagement guide to foster progress toward the Housing Commission's vision and secure additional public funding. Stakeholder communication, develop a communication strategy for the Housing Commission and key housing and homelessness issues that build support and awareness among policymakers and stakeholders for the Housing Commission and its multifaceted responsibilities. And public engagement, develop and implement an ongoing public engagement plan to build support for housing and homelessness solutions and the Housing Commission among the public, including neighborhood planning associations, community leaders, and the public at large. Next slide. We are in the process of developing a policy engagement guide and are working with Strategies 360 in Sacramento to support and advance state legislation. This includes advocating for funding for affordable housing and homelessness programs. The Housing Commission also developed an agency-wide communication plan in consultation with Strategies 360. The Housing Commission's experience with the successful outreach for the COVID-19 Housing Stability Assistance Program informed elements of the communications plan. The plan includes connection with audiences through venues and platforms they frequently access and use. This includes collaborations with community organizations and engagement through neighborhood organizations and with local community leaders. For example, to raise awareness about the funds available to help households through the first-time homebuyer program, the Housing Commission created flyers in English and Spanish. We emailed these flyers to realtors, loan officers, and hundreds of community organizations that we also had contacted during the Housing Stability Assistance Program, asking them to help make the community aware of the homebuyer assistance. We also secured coverage on one of our local television news stations and broadcast a public service advertisement through Cox Communications. Additional communication initiatives are in progress. These include a collaborative effort between our communications team and the Compliance and Equity Assurance Department to implement an online platform to enhance community outreach and engagement. Next slide. Grant funding is secured by the Housing Commission directly, as well as through its nonprofit affiliate, SDHC Building Opportunities, Inc. SDHC Building Opportunities, Inc. supports the Housing Commission's mission and vision by enabling it to apply for additional grant opportunities. 4 of the strategic plan's 5 priority areas expressly include first-year actions related to securing funding. It's important to note that grant activities also indirectly support our strategic priority, investing in our team, but that is not specifically shown on this slide. For tracking purposes, individual grant awards have been correlated to the strategic priority with which the grant purpose most closely aligns. However, most grant awards also reinforce other priorities of the Housing Commission's strategic plan. For example, the Housing Commission was awarded $7.65 million from the Wells Fargo Foundation to create 5,000 net new Black, Indigenous, and People of Color, or BIPOC, homeowners in the region by 2025. This cross-sector effort is being led by the San Diego City County Reinvestment Task Force and involves other Housing Commission departments. The plan to achieve this homeownership goal involves extensive advocacy, communication, and public engagement. Additional plan tactics and projected outcomes address affordable housing solutions and self-sufficiency and quality of life. In support of the Housing Commission's vision, mission, and purpose, staff proactively researches and shares funding opportunities internally and with external partners. This includes government, developer, and nonprofit partners and helps to maximize the resources brought to San Diego. An additional highlight is the breakdown of funding from private and public sources. 14 grants totaling approximately $8.1 million came from private sources, and 9 grants totaling approximately $7.3 million came from public sources. At the time this report was prepared, 6 grant applications were pending decisions, 5 requests for more than $12 million, and 1 request for 50 additional federal mainstream vouchers. Next slide. We are 1 year into a 3-year strategic plan. As we have detailed in today's presentation, we've made significant progress in support of our strategic priorities. This reflects a shared commitment throughout the agency, the professionalism and dedication of our staff at all levels, the leadership and direction from our executive team, and the guidance and support of this board. But we're not yet done. In the weeks, months, and the years ahead, we will continue to advance our efforts in these areas through the hard work of the Housing Commission's staff and collaboration with partners. It's also important to keep in mind that the strategic plan is a living document. We will make adjustments as needed based on changes in the housing market, new opportunities that may become available, federal, state, or local policy decisions that affect the agency and our programs, potential changes in leadership and Housing Commission reforms, and additional feedback we may receive from policymakers. No single organization can resolve all of the housing and homelessness issues in the city alone. As we have done in the past, the Housing Commission looks forward to continuing to work with the City Council, the mayor, additional elected officials, civic leaders, developers, service providers, and community organizations to achieve housing solutions. That concludes our presentation. We are all available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Scott, do we have any callers?
We do not have any callers. Thank you.
Okay, I see Commissioner Vasquez has her hand up. Commissioner Vasquez.
Hi, thank you for that extensive report on goals for the next 2 years. I wanted to just speak to the issue with the internet. It is pervasive, especially when dealing with people that are victims of financial abuse or domestic abuse, domestic violence via financial abuse because they have no credit. It's even more difficult. They want deposits for the access, and yet the internet is so, it also can provide additional resources, but that's not our purview. I just am grateful that you guys are addressing the issue of the internet. When I did want clarification when you guys were talking about middle income housing, that we're still talking about affordable housing, which is between 80 and 120% AMI. And I have other questions. So if you want me to, I can go on and then you guys address them, or I can wait. It's up to you. Okay, I'll go on.
Let's take them one at a time. So your question about middle income housing and how we're addressing that, is that how I understand it?
Yeah.
Emily, you want to address that, please?
Sure. Yeah, so thank you, Commissioner. We did participate on the Mayor's Middle Income Working Group, which really sort of established some potential solutions. The biggest is that the funding playground that we are in, really doesn't allow for us to assist, at least from a subsidy standpoint. But we are looking at regulatory efforts to sort of ease the production of that, including allowing for a welfare tax exemption above the threshold that it is now, which is 80% AMI or below, which will allow some of these deals to pencil. So there are some strategies at play, looking at diff fees, looking at ways in which regulations sort of slow things down. But for us, the funding that we play in really makes it challenging. So.
And if I could also just ask Molly Chase to talk a little bit about our middle income ownership study. That's another area that we're looking at.
Of course. Thanks, Jeff. And thank you, Commissioner. Next week at Land Use and Housing, we are presenting a report from the Urban Institute that looks at ways to increase opportunities for middle income first-time home buyers. Again, to Emily's point, we're currently constrained by funding opportunities, but we're looking at 7 different jurisdictions that used a variety of local, primarily general fund from city funding sources to expand their first-time home buyer up to 120 or 150% AMI. And that report also looks at expanding opportunities for Black home ownership opportunities and references the success on the Worth grant. So we will share that with you. It should be published on Monday, and happy to give you a briefing on that work.
Okay, so just to clarify, we're not specifically looking for just 80 to 120, I thank you, Molly, for addressing it. We're including up to 150% of AMI, which is not technically affordable housing, but it is still, it's 30% above affordable housing guidelines.
Correct. The report looks at what other jurisdictions are doing, including San Francisco, which actually goes even above 150% AMI, but then we'll come back depending on the committee's recommendations and potential funding opportunities on anything that we could bring forward. But again, funding is kind of the linchpin for anything that we could do further.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. And then the only other, I think when we were in our, when you guys first presented what the goals were going to be, I had asked that not only do we find out what has been completed by, or what has been accomplished by the Housing Commission, but also where that puts, like where our goal is, our RENA numbers, and use those as a comparison. Although I the Housing Commission is not entirely responsible for meeting those goals. I just want us to be able to say, hey, look, we're meeting, this is what we're doing on our part to hit goals in comparison, right? Because you don't have control over what the Housing Authority does or what City Council does, but you do have, it would be nice to have that metric so that we can use that for communicating to other departments or agencies that they need to do their fair share in making sure that we meet our RENA numbers. And I mean, there was a lot of general terms that were being used as far as what you guys were doing, but I just want to make sure that matrix is included as to an annual evaluation of where we are to meeting our RENA numbers. And what portion of that is from the San Diego Housing. And then the last is obstacles, identifying the obstacles that you guys are on the ground floor of how to get affordable housing. You guys all have the right intention of trying to get everybody housing, yet I'm sure you guys are constantly coming up to obstacles that are that you're meeting, whether it be because we have investors purchasing real property and they're sucking up what little we have, where we have multiple homeowners within a certain city, certain city or even county that are sucking up the units, and so with you guys being on the ground floor, identifying the obstacles aside from just the lack of funding, it would be beneficial again to then be able to report that to the Housing Commission. For example, Atlantic City just passed an ordinance that that disallowed investment properties, more than 2 investment properties to be purchased by one person or one entity to address the affordable housing issue that Atlanta City is having. Love to see something like that happen in San Diego City, so more of our employees that live here can work here, can live here. So that, but in order to, how do I say, I think that there's an opportunity for you guys to identify what you are constantly finding as obstacles to being able to hit your goals, aside from just the general explanation of the lack of funding. So that's my 2 cents. Great job, you guys. I'm excited for the next 2 years.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. No, those are excellent points, and including obstacles and challenges is something I think that we can not only do in further updates on the strategic plan, but in other reports that we forward. Very good point.
Commissioner Mitchell?
So great report. And, Lisa, I think, I've always, since I joined the commission, I've always thought about this from the perspective of what I listened to before joining the commission and what I witnessed while on the commission. And, one of the things I think causes great confusion is the AMI element of it. And Commissioner Vasquez was mentioning Atlantic City. I think there was a mention of San Francisco. Part of, I think, the problem we have in San Diego, and I hope we can get better about being the true information conduit, is the AMI stuff doesn't make sense necessarily to the average person sitting in their living room trying to figure out where they're going to live. And they're renting, and I think that we used to make the same argument when I was at the chamber about the basic allowance for housing for the military. The military families that are struggling to find a place to live is because they're getting the BAW. The BAW was inadequate, and it was inadequate in a high cost of living area. And so I would say that that one of the things that I think is essential is the cost of living is going to continue to rise. We may see a little bit of an economic slowdown. It may not lead to layoffs, but it's going to lead to more of a struggle and people looking for housing. And so I would ask that we find some better way to define what it is that we're trying to build, we're trying to solicit. When I was at the chamber, we used to talk about the $200,000 home. That was kind of funny back then, right? Can we build more $200,000 homes? And Jeff, you've been at the Housing Commission a long time. We used to talk to CCDC about this. Hey, wouldn't it be great if we built 500 units downtown that were $200,000 to $250,000? of course, at that time, the median price of a home in San Diego County was, we inched up right before the housing crisis to around 500,000. So we thought it's not possible. We got great response from people. We were like, yeah, you're right. We should build more $200,000 homes, more $250,000 homes, because people were able to connect with what our ultimate objective was, right? At the chamber, we believe that was the most important thing, is getting the community behind the ultimate objective. And I think housing has become complicated because we have mastered acronyms. There's no one better at acronyms than the housing industry, and the commission is right along with it. I see Emily laughing because because I can sit in meetings with you guys and you will use 30 acronyms and I'll be like, wait, I have to write them down, and then I have to secretly go and ask Debbie Ruane, what does that mean? So I think that the plan, that's why I asked about the PSH housing earlier. One of the things that I think is going to be important is that we really take what you guys have presented today and put it into an easier to understand map of here's what we really need. I think that what's happening, and I think I think all the commissioners would agree, is there was once a day where if you were making $50,000 a year in San Diego, you could live adequately. You could maneuver, and the harsh reality is that we're having a conversation where today people are struggling. Families of four are struggling. If you're a family of four and you're trying to find a house and you're making $100,000, it's not easy. And so, what do we do? How are we a better voice for that basic segment of the population? And I think Sandag does a good job of breaking down income segments and what percentage are here, what percentage are there. There's an article in the UT yesterday that talked about we have a larger percentage of $1 million homes now in this region in New York. Great headline. What does that mean? It just means that people are struggling more, right? And that's not, in my opinion, not a great headline. It's not a great thing for San Diego. It just means we're going to see more people struggling, and as we witness the number of people living on the streets, and I want to commend you guys for quickly helping the family that was mentioned in the Voice article that was living in a van. We're going to see more and more of that happening. But even if you were to ask that family, hey, how much, when you're both working, what can you afford? Are we building that? Are we meeting the needs of the largest segment of our region? And the largest segment of our region is not buying $1 million homes. So I want to commend you on the report, Lisa, and the team. And we have a lot of work to do to provide clarity that is long overdue, and that sends a signal to the market of what we really need. And I'll end with one final statement. I also believe that there's an article that talked about the fact that we can now potentially build above the height limits in the coastal zone, which I thought was interesting, because for a housing commission, well, this may be some great opportunity, not without some community opposition, but this may be a great opportunity. But then you have to think, okay, well, what do we really need to build? And there are areas of the region that probably are that we don't focus enough on, where we can try and entice people to go and build. And there's a partnership, and I'll close on the partnership aspect of, as things get a little tighter, a little tougher, the families that are in commission, influence properties and projects need more help, more information. That we've had this conversation about technology, for the last couple of years in particular. We found this out with rental assistance, right? A lot of people don't have access to the internet, so we had to go mobile. And hats off to Molly and Jeff. I mean, you guys saw it. I remember talking to Bridget Browning. Most of her members don't have internet access, and so what I think we need to try to do is simplify and figure out what is a common thing that is exportable, where we can create a solution to internet access. Because a lot of people living in the housing units that we're funding and that we're providing support, getting them access to the internet is one thing. The tools to do it, iPads and computers, that's another topic of conversation. But we found this out in '08 when the '08 crisis happened. We would have 1,100 to 2,000 people standing in line to get food. Most of them didn't have access to the internet. So we would use iPads to walk up and down the line and ask them questions of what they needed. We became very skilled at getting people, helping them complete their applications when they were picking up food for welfare assistance from the county. We had to do that because I remember telling the team, it doesn't do us any good to just give somebody a box of food and they go back to wherever it is they're staying and they still lack the information and the resources that could help improve their lives. I think we as an organization have to be better at that as well. And there's a bunch of ways to do that in partnership, but just those are some things to consider. So, but overall, great report, but there's a lot that the report also highlights a lot of things that we really need to focus on because the times have changed and it requires us to make some changes ourselves. And I'm all for investing in our staff. Kudos to you guys on that. That's so important. So.
Thank you. Anything else from the commissioners? No. Okay, this is an informational item, so there is no action required, but thank you, everybody. It was a great conversation. Really excited to see what comes next. Certainly a lot of work has been done already. Thank you. Our final item is item 100, the board's election of officers. The phone line is now open for public comments about item 100. You can call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. There were no written public comments submitted regarding this item, but again, that number is 833-610-2513. Scott, do we have any callers at this time?
We do not have any callers. We have about 1 minute and 20 seconds left.
Great, thank you.
That concludes the time and there are no callers.
Thank you. There is no presentation for this item, but I am happy to make a motion for Commissioner Mitch Mitchell to serve as the chair of the board and Commissioner Ryan Klempner to stay on as vice chair. I'd love to look for a second or if there's any discussion.
Chuck, is there any reason I couldn't second?
No, there's no reason. You're
okay.
Certainly free to second it. Yes.
I'm happy to second that. I didn't really prepare anything because I wasn't exactly sure what was going to happen at this moment in the meeting, but I do want to just start by thanking Chair Benvenuto. It seems like an eternity ago that you became chair, and I'm sure it feels like even more of an eternity to you, given everything that has happened in that intervening period. But I mean, it has been quite the period of time that you've presided over this body, and I have always really appreciated both that you bring fantastic questions, and hopefully we'll have maybe more of those if you're not doing all of the chair functions as well. And then you've also just kept this board very orderly and organized and respectful and polite and everything moving along, even when we have very busy agendas with ample time to discuss everything, but not get stuck on anything. And it is big shoes for Commissioner Mitchell to fill, which I'm sure that he will do fantastically. I'm making this up as I go here. Mitch, your questions, in particular, I think the last few months you've had some very good insights that you've brought to the discussion. So I'm very comfortable with this board going in that direction.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, we can go ahead and call the vote. Vice Chair Klempner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hester had to drop off, and I'm doing a quick scan. That does not look like it's changed. Okay. Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Vasquez.
Aye.
Okay, I add my vote in favor. That motion carries unanimously with all 4 of us voting in support. Congratulations to Commissioners Mitchell and Klempner. I look forward to working with both of you and not having to give a really long, weird speech at the beginning of every meeting. And thanks to staff for the time as I had as chair. Certainly was interesting, certainly has been interesting, really rewarding. But it's been one of the best highlights has been getting to work with the brilliant people who staff the commission. So thank you all.
I just will say this in closing, Madam Chair, is you were calm under pressure. Navigating COVID was not easy. This organization had to pivot quickly, and I remember the days of trying to move people into the convention center, and the Housing Commission being full-fledged in the debate of how do we care for people in the midst of the pandemic. And again, I will echo what Commissioner Klempner said: is you were exemplary in your leadership, and I'm looking forward to continue to work with you even more as we move forward. So
you're all very kind and only a little bit of liars, but I appreciate you all. This concludes our special meeting today. This meeting is adjourned at 11:12. Thank you, everybody.
Have a great weekend.